Hey everyone, welcome to another video. So today I'm super excited to be able to share my Inktober drawings with you guys. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Inktober, it is basically a 31-day art challenge held in the month of October. It was created by Jake Parker, and basically you try to do a traditional ink drawing every single day during October and then post it on social media. Nowadays, Inktober has taken on many different variations, and I believe there's even a digital art version of Inktober. But basically, the core of it is to just challenge yourself to draw every day for 31 days and possibly doing something new, and ultimately just having fun with it and seeing your growth and improvement over the month. So I have actually attempted Inktober multiple times in the past, and this is only the second time I have completed the 31-day challenge. Ironically, both of the times I did all 31 days was while I was in medical school, which doesn't make sense because I shouldn't have a lot of time to, do drawings on top of studying and whatnot. But I managed to do it. The first time that I finished it was maybe about 2 years ago. So those 31 days were done with just ballpoint ink, but this time around I tried to use real ink, and I had a lot of fun with it. I decided to follow the official Inktober prompt list this year. That's the first time I've ever tried doing any kind of prompt list. In the past, I kind of just drew whatever I felt like during that day and just went with it. I also added another layer of challenge by featuring just my original characters for Inktober. So this video is mostly just me talking about all of the drawings and just sharing a little bit about my original characters, also known as OCs. But if you guys are more interested in seeing just a flip through of my drawings without any kind of voiceover, I will also be doing that video, so be on the lookout for a link for that. I also want to apologize. So I had the flu like 2 to 3 weeks ago, and my voice is still recovering, and I've still got this really stupid like post-nasal drip induced cough. So I apologize if there's any coughing while I'm doing the voiceover. I'm going to try my best to kind of edit that out when possible. So without further ado, let's just get started. So I did all of my drawings in the ELO sketchbook. This is the 8x8, and I decided to take Inktober with just kind of playing around with different media. So some of these drawings are not the most polished. I was just experimenting a lot and getting more used to the ELO paper. I also did most of these drawings while I was away at my 4-week internship, and so this was the only sketchbook I was able to pack with me. So you guys may see a few things like thumbnails or just swatching things out, trying out some art supplies in this sketchbook. And normally that's done in a different sketchbook, but because I only had one with me, I kind of used this as my everything sketchbook during Inktober. So let's get started. So day one, or actually before day one, I did a test drawing kind of a few days before Inktober officially started. So this is my OC Rain. It was just kind of like a test drawing just to see how things were going to work with Inktober and just get myself in the Inktober mindset. So basically my Inktober kind of process is that I will use just regular colored lead to do the thumbnails or the sketch, and then I go over that with ink. And I actually tried a few different fine liners during Inktober, but the majority of these were done using the Derwent Graphic Line Maker 0.1. So day one was Ring. I decided to feature my OC Yukiro. He's one of my most fleshed out characters, and I decided to feature his ring because he's actually married to one of my friend's characters, so that's what I did for that day. Day two was Mindless. I decided to feature my character Sora. I'm currently using him in a kind of like a one-shot story role-playing thing with a friend, but he has a very dense character, doesn't really read the room or people's sayings very well, so I decided to stretch the word mindless to kind of just dense, and so that's what I did here. This was also the first time that I used the acrylic ink that I got from my Inktober themed Art Snacks box for this month, and so that was a lot of fun. Day three was Bait. So this was featuring my character Denzel. He's a siren, and so I took this word literally and just kind of included like this bait, like this fish. I also decided to try out the Tombow pastel markers, which I picked up I think early on in Inktober, and you can see that I had swatched it out over here. So I wanted to do kind of like a monochrome piece, which when I think of Inktober, I think the idea behind just doing a monochrome piece is just very cool. And so I just used the purple pastel colors for this. Next we have day 4, which is freeze. So I have a few demon characters who are ice or snow elemental, and so this is Shiro, and just showing him kind of freezing and showing off his ice magic. I also picked up the Bombay Teal India ink, which I have right here. When I think of Inktober, I do think of India ink. I feel like it's kind of not stereotypical, but it's a very common medium to use during Inktober, so I wanted to try that out during Inktober. So this was my first piece using that, and then I continued to kind of try it out by adding more water and diluting the ink to see kind of the gradient that I could get in the different colors. Day 5 was build. So this was a fairly easier piece. All of my drawings were done when I came home from work, so if I had a long day or just a tiring day, I did a more simpler piece. So this is of Sora again. So I'm currently doing a role play story with a friend, and he likes his snow baths, so I decided to just use the prompt word build to kind of show him kind of like building, kind of like sandcastles, but out of snow from his snow bath. Day 6 was husky. So initially I wanted to do like a husky character, so like someone with a muscular build, but I don't really have a character like that. The closest is KO, since he's a general, so he has to be like very athletic and fit. But I went with a husky like dog, and I've actually never drawn animals before, and I don't think I've ever drawn a dog, let alone a husky. So hopefully this kind of looks like a husky. I looked at a few images for reference and just went with that, so hopefully it turned out all right. I'm also really bad at composition. That's something that I realized while I was drawing my Inktober pieces in this square sketchbook, that I don't really do well with kind of maximizing the white space of the sketchbook paper. So I had all of this random white space that I couldn't fit another drawing in, so I was playing around with the abstract Sennelier acrylic ink, which is here. This came with my Art Snacks box for October, and just kind of doodled some floral looking things. Doesn't look that great, but I just wanted to fill up this space, but without it, it looks really nice. So moving on, so this piece, so day 7, Enchanted. I actually really like this piece, mostly because I decided to be adventurous and kind of go over this binding and try to utilize this entire 2-page spread. So this is my first hardbound sketchbook, and so the concept of being able to use both pages as like just a single spread is a new concept for me, and I don't know, it's very common for me to treat each page like its own separate thing, and so this was me just kind of going off the boundaries and trying something new. And for Enchanted, like Rain is my summoner character, and so he's got not a magical staff, but he does use a staff to kind of use his magic and summoning abilities, and I used a Cardcaptor Sakura reference for it, but overall it just turned out really fun, and I really like the way that this kind of looked at the end. Day 8 was Frail, featuring Sora again. He's kind of like my rebellious teenager character. He's a prince. He ran away from home because he wanted to avoid his princely responsibilities, and so he's used to being very entitled, gets everything that he wants, and gets very offended if he doesn't get what he wants when he wants it. So I chose Frail to kind of describe his personality and his ego, because it's fairly frail. It's not that hard to kind of get him all riled up. And then day 8 was Swing, so did something very literally, so just showing Rain kind of swinging his arm and showing off his ability to use water magic. And again, composition is the bane of my existence. I had a lot of white space here and a lot of white space here, and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do to fill up that space. So I decided to just play around with decorations using florals. So this was using the Prima Marketing Vintage Pastel watercolors, and then this was just with the Tombos. It doesn't look great, but I'm just happy that I was able to find something to kind of fill up that space. Next, we have day 10, which is Pattern. This was actually a really difficult prompt word for me. I spent a lot of time trying to think of what I was going to do for this, and I ended up looking through all of my characters, and I don't have a lot of characters, so I went with Lushu just because he kind of has a pattern. He is an Elior closed species. I had created him during a make-your-own event where you kind of design your own character for the species and it gets approved by the creator, and then it's yours to keep. And so this is Lushu. He has kind of stars on his tail, but I also gave him kind of like tribal tattoo designs over his body, so just kind of showing off some of that. And then I did some cross hatching with some yellow. I don't know how well it shows up on the camera, so that was my take on pattern. Day 11 is snow. Again, I have multiple OCs of the same species who are able to wield snow and ice powers, but Yukiro is my original snow wielding character, so I decided to dedicate this day to him. Day 12 is Dragon, featuring my OC Aru, who's a demon dragon hybrid. And this is probably one of my favorite pieces of Inktober, because when I think of Inktober, like, this is what I think of, like a lot of black and a lot of ink. So I use the Bombay India ink for this piece, and then just the black background, very simple blocked out background, but it just looks, I just really like the way that it turned out. So definitely one of my favorite pieces. And then this page was just checking out and testing out a new mechanical pencil. So I used the Uni Nano Dia colored lead, and unfortunately that lead is very fragile. It fragments and breaks off very easily if you're not using the right mechanical pencil. And unfortunately it kind of jammed up my pencil because it broke into so many pieces and it was getting stuck in my mechanical pencil, so I had to buy a new one. So I decided to buy the Uni Kuru Toga 0.5 Advanced Pencil. And it was kind of a happy accident because I really like this pencil. It's very lightweight. It has this feature where it kind of rotates the lead to keep it sharp. And so there was that. It came with a sticker, and then I was just trying out the pencil before moving on with the rest of my Inktober pieces. Day 13 was Ash. This was also another really difficult prompt word for me. I want to say I spent a good 2-3 hours literally just sitting there and being like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm gonna do for this piece. But when I think of ash, I think of like a black color. I know for ash colored hair, it's more like a gray, smoky, stone colored color, but I decided to just go with black. And so this is actually Sora. In the story that I'm role playing, he's actually run away from home. He's stumbled upon a human village, but unfortunately they're not the most I don't know, like friendly towards demons, and so he's trying to blend in. He's made friends with the human, and now they're going on adventures and traveling, but he still has to try to hide his demon features. And his human companion has on multiple occasions been like, you know, you should just dye your hair, like I'll help you like blend in a lot better, because he originally has very white hair. But honestly, I felt so dirty just doing it like this and coloring his hair. It just felt so wrong because he's got beautiful white hair, and just coloring it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not him. So never doing that again, but that's what I did for Ash. Day 14 was Overgrown, so this is featuring Denzel, and you know, he's a siren, so he's essentially just an overgrown fish, so I just went with that. I'm still in the process of learning how to draw merman bodies and trying to get that flow and that transition from, you know, the human part to kind of the tail. But hopefully I was able to get a good kind of just curvy flow for him. Day 15 was Legend. So this was inspired by Naomi Smalls' song Legs, featured in one of the RuPaul's Drag Race episodes or seasons. And one of the lines in the song is, "I'm legendary, all legs, no dairy." So I very loosely used that for the prompt word legend, and featured probably my only female character, but just showing off her legs and using the India ink again and just playing around with that. Again, composition is not my strong suit, so I could have definitely moved this over so I could kind of get her wing and instead of it getting cut off here. So there was that. Now this page, I don't know how well the camera's going to pick it up, but at this point I was kind of falling a bit behind, like 1 or 2 days behind on Inktober, so I did a lot of thumbnail sketches to try to plan ahead for a catch-up of what I wanted to do for each day. And so some of these next few pieces are out of order, so like this was day 15 and now I'm on day 17. So this was Ornament featuring Yukiro. He's kind of like my pretty boy character, so sometimes I like giving him more feminine features. So for this one, I wanted to do kind of like a hair ornament, inspired by the Japanese hair ornaments that you sometimes see on geishas. And I wanted to do something more intricate, but again, due to time constraints and just being very busy with work on top of doing Inktober, I decided to just go with flowers. And then again, just using the India ink to add some color. Day 18 was Misfit, so out of all my characters, when I hear the word Misfit, I think of Sora, just because he's, my rebellious, angsty teenager. This is probably my least favorite piece of Inktober. I'm just really sad with how it turned out. The sketch was amazing, the line art turned out really well, and then when I went to add color, I feel like it just ruined the piece and just turned it really lackluster. I used the Prima Marketing Vintage Pastel watercolors for this, and I'm not sure if it's my lack of watercolor skills or the watercolors themselves or the brush that I'm using or the paper. But it just, I don't know, like I've realized that trying to do watercolors over large areas of paper, it just doesn't turn out well. Like it doesn't spread evenly, and the colors just look very blotchy, as you could see just throughout all the streaking, all the blotchiness, and just the uneven distribution of color. So I'm really unhappy with how this turned out, and it's just really sad. But again, with Inktober, I decided to really be experimental about media. And just trying things out, a lot of things for the first time. And so, sometimes you just have to learn from your mistakes, and that's totally okay. As long as you learn from it and have fun, like, it's fine. Day 16 was Wild. So this, I believe, is the first drawing of Sora in his original demon form. So he has a demon form and a humanoid form. And so when I think of Wild, I was like, well, Sora in his natural habitat in his original demon form, and then butterflies, because apparently when I think of Wild, I just think of butterflies. So there's that. I had a lot of fun with pieces like this where I did a lot of black and white for the character and then just added like a block of color in the background. I would like to think that my strong suit when it comes to my art style is just very clean, precise line work, and then just line weight, which I take a lot of pride in, and I think it looks really cool at the end with just the contrast of the black and the white. Day 19 is Sling. So I think out of all my characters, KO is probably the one who's most prone to getting or sustaining injuries, just because he can be reckless at times. So I just drew him in a sling and used the acrylic ink again just to get the different shades. Day 20 is Tread, another prompt word that was very hard for me to try to figure out what I wanted to do. So I just featured Rain, and he's just kind of in the midst of like a walk cycle, like tread, like walking. Day 21 was Treasure, so featuring Denzel. So I don't know if I mentioned before, but Rain is a summoner, and then Denzel is actually his siren familiar. But I wanted to do kind of like a Little Mermaid parody, where she finds the dingle hopper fork and adds that to her treasure collection. So I just had fun with that. I also got a second color of India ink, so this is a violet color. Let me just show you guys that. So the Bombay Violet India ink. So I wanted to try that for this piece. And it was actually very appropriate because Denzel's color palette is very much different kinds of purples. Day 22 was Ghost. I had a lot of fun with this, trying to think of, okay, which of my characters would be the most scaredy cat? And I think it would be Rain. And so I just had fun with this and showed him kind of getting so scared that his soul is now leaving his body. This is a very Japanese anime and manga trope, I guess. But even though this was a more simpler piece, I really like the way that it turned out. It almost looks like it came out of a panel of a comic strip. So that was really cool. Day 23 is Ancient. So because I think all of my OCs are some form of demon, they're all very old from a human's perspective. So like Sora is 265 years old, and I have it so that 15 human years is equivalent to 1 demon year. So he's equivalent to like a 17, 18-year-old. So he truly is like my teenager. I just really like creating really clean line art, and I'm sad that because I've learned that with both hardbound and spiral sketchbooks, like if you draw on both sides using ink, like it's just inevitable that the ink is going to transfer to the other page. So I'm just really sad that this was a very clean piece of art that really had great contrast between the black and white and just showing off my line art. And I'll just kind of zoom in so you guys could see the line weights and everything. I personally think it looks really cool, but then because of the line transfer from the other page, it just kind of dirties this page so it doesn't look as impressive. So I will put a link to my Instagram account where I've posted all of these drawings so you guys could see them before they were kind of ruined with all of this ink transfer. Day 24 was Dizzy. I had a very small amount of workspace, but I wanted to fill it with something. So I kind of did a complimentary piece to day 22 and just showed Rain again with this black background and just playing around with facial expressions. So because Rain is kind of like a newly fully fledged summoner, I feel like he still studies a lot and he's still studying hard. So maybe he's just getting dizzy from just all the overwhelming material that he's got to study. Day 25 was Tasty. This was probably one of the easier prompts. And overall, this one was really cute. I really like the pink color. But this is featuring Yukiro, and he really likes eating sweets and cake, and he likes baking. So I found that this prompt was very appropriate for him. Day 26 was Dark. I wanted to do something where I really showed the contrast of black and white and just use a fine liner. So I chose Aru because he has very dark colored hair. I actually have another character with dark colored skin and dark colored hair, but because I had already decided that I was just going to use a fine liner for the black, that would have been really difficult to do with a character with both dark colored hair and dark colored skin. Day 27 is Coat. Again, just featuring Sora with the story that I've got. You know, he's trying to stay hidden and hide his demon features while he's traveling with his human companion. So he's kind of wearing a coat to cover up his ears and his white hair. So day 28 was Ride. I think this is probably my favorite piece out of all 31 days of Inktober. This was actually done for the Art Snacks October monthly challenge, and I just really like the way that this piece turned out. I did have to cheat a little and use my own fine liner and Tombow pastel purple to get some of the colors, but apart from that, like the blue and the dark grayish lavender are from the Copic markers that I got with the month's box, and then the abstract acrylic ink for the fish, as well as his skin tones, being able to dilute that. And I'm just going to zoom in because I'm really proud of this piece, and I'm just so happy with the way that it turned out, especially because the Copic markers that I got were the classic Copic markers, and those only have a chisel nib and a fine point nib. They don't have the brush marker part of it. And so it was kind of a gamble to see how well that was going to turn out with this piece. And I'm just really happy with the way that the color kind of spread out very evenly. And I mean, going into this challenge, I knew I wanted to feature Denzel because when I saw the colors, I was like, that's totally Denzel's color, so I'm just going to go with that. But yeah, it just turned out really good, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Day 28 was Ride, so I just decided to say, you know, he's riding the currents because he's a siren, so he's underwater and whatnot. But yeah, so I like this piece so much that I actually have added this kind of wax parchment paper to protect it from any ink transfer, because I don't want this piece to get ruined by any ink from, you know, the pages rubbing together. And we are almost done. Thank you guys if you have stuck with me for this long. So day 29 was Injured, featuring Sora again. While KO is probably the more reckless character, I think Sora is likely to get into fights just because he's, you know, this rebellious teenager, has a very frail ego and gets hurt very easily. So I decided to feature him for that prompt. And again, I just really like the way that I do my line art and line weight, and then just adding a dash of color for just some extra fun. Day 30 was Catch, so this was featuring Lushu, kind of catching some falling stars. I really like the black background kind of to mirror the night sky, and then that contrast against his character looked really cool. He actually has black or very dark colored hair, and I decided against coloring his hair just because I want to show all the details. Again, I really like doing very detailed, intricate pieces, so I decided to just leave that white for emphasis. And then last but not least, so day 31 was Ripe, and I decided to feature Darius because I realized he's the only OC that I haven't drawn yet for Inktober, and so he's just holding an apple, because when I think of ripe, I think of, you know, ripe fruits like apples. This was another one that I wish I didn't color in just because I felt that it really made the piece worse. Like the sketch was fine, the line art was fine, but then because he's got a lot of dark colors in his color palette, I was like, oh, I'll just use the violet just to kind of give him a monochrome feel to it. But the violet ink is very dark, and like I tried diluting it, but it still obscured a lot of the details. So I'm not even sure if you could see a lot of the details of this drawing. But yeah, it was kind of a bummer that this was, you know, the last day of Inktober and it didn't turn out the way that I wanted. But again, like, it is what it is, and overall I had a lot of fun with Inktober. I really don't think I'll be able to do any more complete 31-day Inktober challenges moving forward, just because of where I'm going to be in terms of finishing med school, going into residency, and just being very busy at the hospital and all. But I'm really glad that I was finally able to do like a real Inktober 31-day challenge using real ink. And it was just a lot of fun, just trying out a lot of different media, getting a better idea of this ELO sketchbook, what it can handle, what it can't handle. But thank you again, guys, for sticking around with me up until now. Again, I'm going to do just a flip through without a voiceover if you guys wanted to see just a short video of just the drawings without me talking about my characters. So thank you again. If you like this kind of content, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, and do all of that fun stuff. And I will see you guys in the next video.